Very good afternoon. Today we have a visitor, Dr. Nitin Chaudhary, and he's visiting Pramit, I guess, and CCCR as well. So I invite Pramit, you kindly introduce the speaker. It's our 48th Ananthakrishnan Colloquium. So Pramit.
Thank you, sir, for introducing me. And it's a great pleasure for me today to introduce Dr. Nitin Chaudhary, who is an ecosystem modeler and scientist at the Department of Physical Geography and Ecosystem Science at Lund University, Lund, Sweden. He has mainly worked on peatland dynamics in Sweden, Norway, and India. He did his PhD and MSc in 2017 and 2018 respectively from the same department. His doctoral thesis was titled Peatland Dynamics in the Context of Past and Future, Past and Potential Future Climate Change, a regional modeling approach, for which he worked with Professor Benjamin Smith. His current research focus is on the incorporation of methane biogeochemistry into the global dynamic peatland vegetation model, that is also known as LPJ-GUESS. He is interested in addressing research problems related to climate and biosphere interactions. He has published 19 papers so far, with H index and item index both of being 8. He is a recipient of the Crawford Stiftelsen grant and the Early Career Research Grant from the Swedish Research Council. He has worked as reviewers for Czech Republic Funding Agency and UK National Grants Commission. He has contributed to the IPCC Working Group 1 AR6 report and guest edited atmospheric for the journal Atmosphere. He is a member of Past Global Changes pages, Permafrost Young Research Network PYRN, International Peatland Association IPA, Young Earth System Scientist Network, Sweden's University Teachers and Researchers Association, and then Association of Polar Early Career Scientists, Sweden and Norway. So I met Nitin during a conference on the climate science actually, and that's how we got to know each other. So I hope all of us will be benefited today from the work he is doing at Sweden. So without much further ado, I just invite Nitin to start your talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me for this talk. I mainly focus on peatlands and the modeling aspects. So topic of my presentation is modeling peatland carbon dynamics and their influence on Earth radiative balance in the past and future climates. I come from Department of Physical Geography and Ecosystem Sciences, Lund University, Sweden. So behind this slide, you can see there is a typical peatland which you find in Sweden. So they are the carbon-rich ecosystems, and they are also underlain by permafrost. Permafrost is the frozen ground. So how this carbon, where this carbon comes from? Basically, peatlands accumulate carbon when the net primary productivity is greater than the decomposition rate. And because of this imbalance, they store huge amounts of carbon in the terrestrial ecosystem. So since the Holocene, they have stored around 300 to 500 petagram of carbon in the terrestrial ecosystems. And if we see this image, we will see majority of the peatlands are located in the northern latitude regions, which is 45° north to the 75° north. And this is where we find permafrost. Permafrost is the frozen ground, rich of ice. They affect the peat accumulation and decomposition functionality, and also affect the plant productivity. In the future, we know the climate is changing, and these regions will experience the warming of more than 5 degrees Celsius. So the main question arises here is that how these peatlands will behave in the future, whether they will have a global warming effect in the future, or whether they will have a global cooling effect in the next 50 to 100 years. To answer this question, we require a predictive modeling approach, which involves all the key processes involved in peatland carbon cycle. So when we say key processes, what are the key processes which we know about the peatlands? So if we take out the peat sample from the peat soil, you will see that these peat accumulate in the form of layers. We can identify these layers, we can date them, we can find their age. So we know that the peat accumulate annually in the form of layer. This is the first process. Then in the cold climate region, we see that there is this white thing called permafrost, which freezes thaws seasonally and affect the biogeochemical processes. One of the important features of peatland is the microtopography. If you go to any peatland, you will find these hummock hollow structures. The hummocks are the dry patches which you can see like here, and hollows are the water-filled areas. This is you can see in between. They are the unique structure within themselves. They have different plant functional types, different decomposition rate, different nutrient status. So they are mini ecosystem within a big ecosystem. So they behave differently. They have different carbon fluxes also. They have different methane emissions. So in representing this in a model, you require some kind of model which integrate all these processes. So in my case, I have used LPJ-GUESS model. It's a global vegetation model which simulate long-term and short-term vegetation distribution, carbon fluxes, soil biogeochemistry, plant physiology at regional and global scale. Using this as a platform, I integrated that knowledge which I've told you, the key processes in the model. So now the model looks something like this. Earlier in LPJ-GUESS, we used to have mineral soil layers. Above that, I started integrating peat in the form of annual layers. So now we accumulate peat in the form of layers. And we decompose these peat based on soil temperature and soil water content. We have peat specific plant functional types in the model. So I told you that this in hummocks we have shrubs, in hollows we have graminoid, in between we have mosses. So similarly in the model we have in the higher patches we have shrubs, in the lower patches we have graminoid, and in between we have shrubs. And we represented this spatial heterogeneity through patches. So within the model we have different patches which grows independently. So some patches grows higher, some patches grows lower, and the higher patches are dominated by shrubs, while the lower patches are the water-filled patches. And we distribute this water from higher patches to lower patches. We freezes the water using the soil temperature values. And when we know that there is in the cold climate region, when we know that there is this ice in the soil, this ice basically affect the plant productivity because plant cannot take up the water from the frozen soil. So now we have included all the important processes in the model. We have also partitioned the carbon fluxes in CO2 and methane. So in the methane module. So this is how the schematic diagram of LPJ-GUESS peatland looks like. So now the next step is to evaluate the model. We have evaluated and tested our model at this Trodden site, which is a Palsamaya. And this is our research station here in Sweden. And this is the peatland. You can see how big it is. It is very big. And we collect number of data sets in this region. This is the list of the data set with which we have evaluated our model with. We have used peat depth data, long-term carbon accumulation rate, net ecosystem exchange, water table position, active layer depth, vegetation dynamics, porosity, bulk density, and many more. So we have rigorously tested our model with number of data sets. And once we were satisfied the model is doing satisfactory job for that site, the plan is to do a regional run. But before doing the regional run, we need to evaluate and test the model regionally. So what we have done is that we have submitted our result to the model intercomparison study, ISMIP study, where they have independently, we just submitted the model output. They all did all the testing and they found that LPJ-GUESS is able to capture many things quite robustly. You can see this is the observed net biosphere productivity, and this is the LPJ-GUESS. So once we were satisfied the model is doing good job at a point scale and regionally, now it is time to do some prediction. So we have chosen this peatland above 25° north. We basically selected Indo-Tibetan site also because they are similar to the northern latitude peatlands. And then we Before running the model in the future, we try to run model in the past to see whether model is able to simulate the past carbon accumulation rate or not. So this is the past long-term carbon accumulation rate. The blue line is the long-term carbon accumulation rate, observed one. And the black line is the also the observed long-term carbon accumulation rate. These has been reported by Loisel and Yu. And this is the model, red line is the model long-term carbon accumulation rate. You can see that model is able to almost capture the right variation and within the observed range. So now we are satisfied that the model is able to capture the right uh, kind of long-term carbon accumulation rate. So where we can do our future prediction. So for the future, what we have done is that we have selected two scenarios. One is high mitigation scenario, which is RCP 2.6, and high warming scenario, which is RCP 8.5. And we ran the model until 2300 to see how the peatland behave in the future. So this is the first result. We have not published them yet. So you can see here is that peatland has been in the recent past. This is black line is the recent past. Peatland has been accumulating carbon around 20 to 25 gram carbon per meter square per year. And if there will be no warming further, if there we somehow stops the global warming, peatland keeps on accumulating carbon as usual and add another 16 petagram of carbon in the terrestrial ecosystem. But we know it is not happening. The climate is changing. And in the high warming scenario, we see that how peatland initially remains as a sink, but become a carbon source as time passes. And you can see that they will lose around 20 petagram of carbon from the terrestrial ecosystem in the future. But permafrost peatland behave very differently. Out of 100%, I think 57% of our sites are permafrost sites, and they cover like 2.3 million kilometers square area. And they are different in a way. Here you can see a humpy structure. This humpy structure comes because when there is a warming, permafrost thaws and they leave a lot of moisture in the soil. And this moisture basically enhances the productivity and reduces the decomposition rate. So initially we will see in these peatlands, there is an increase in carbon accumulation rate. But as the water drained away and evaporates, we will see that they will follow the same fate as the earlier peatland. They will lose a lot of carbon and they will lose around 12 petagram of carbon from the terrestrial ecosystem. Yes. So if you see everything, this is the linear thing which you are seeing. Now let's see spatially how it looks like. In the map, you can see that the lower peatland in the lower latitude region, they will start losing carbon first. And the peatland which are on the higher latitude region, they started enhancing their carbon sink capacity. And there is a northward shift in the carbon uptake. So peatland which are earlier under cold climate conditions become more productive, and warming will help them to take up more carbon. As far as permafrost is concerned, though now I come to permafrost. So this is the map developed by International Permafrost Association, and this is my model, which model developed map. And you can see the model is able to create the right kind of, able to predict the right extent of permafrost distribution in high latitude region. And in the future, what happened to this permafrost, which is there in the high latitude region? We will see that the permafrost will shrink from many regions, and this leads to high or deeper active layer depth. Means there will be high moisture available in these regions. That means when there will be a lot of water accumulate anywhere, that leads to high methane. So we will find that the methane emission will increases. So this is the long-term methane emissions from the peatlands. And we see that northern peatland contribute like 6 to 10% of the global methane emissions, and which makes 20 to 40 teragram methane per year. And our model also able to predict the same values which are reported by many studies. And in the future, you can see this is RCP 8.5 high warming scenario. The methane will exponentially increase until 2200, and then it will stabilize. So you can see how the warming affect the methane emissions from these ecosystems. So once we have CO2 and methane from the model, from the peatland, we need to see how it affects the Earth's climate because they are going up in the climate. They must affect something. Then they, so what we have done here differently is that this is the CO2 and this is the methane. They are coming out from the northern latitude. We have used this radiative forcing model, which is developed by Finnish Meteorological Department, and we have these are the CO2 and methane are the input to this model to see whether how they will change the radiative forcing of the Earth climate. What we have found is very interesting. So this is the long-term influence of peatland on the Earth radiative balance. Here we see that since the start of the Holocene, peatland has a cooling effect on the climate. They have like minus 0.5 to 0.6 watt per meter square, which means they are helping us to cool away. But and this similar study that has been done by Frolking, they have also find out that peatland are having a cooling effect on the climate, and they have having this range. So we were very confident about our numbers now. So what we do is that we will do a future predictions. So under RCP 2.6, here what we see is that initially peatland will start losing its sink capacity, and but later they will basically strengthen their sink capacity, and they will have a cooling effect on the climate. But in high warming scenario, because of these high CO2 emissions and because of the high methane emissions, they turn into from cooling effect to the warming effect, and they will basically there is this feedback loop going on where basically peatlands earlier they used to have a cooling effect, now they will have a warming effect on the climate. Yeah, so now this work has been done. This is another work which we are doing right now. So what we are doing is that this LPJ gas peatland, which I have developed during my doctoral days, now I am integrating this land surface scheme in RCA gas model. RCA gas is a regional Earth system model, and what we are doing is to examine the role of peatlands mediated biogeophysical feedbacks to the climate. What are the biogeophysical feedbacks? These are the feedbacks which trigger due to changes in albedo, leaf area index, and evapotranspiration, and they have a local effect. They don't have a global effect. So what I am doing in this study is that we have this LPG gas peatland right now, and this is the developed by SMHI RCA model. What we are doing, we are coupling these two models, and this model basically gives input temperature, radiation, and soil water to the LPG gas, and in turn, my model basically gives back albedo, leaf area index, and evapotranspiration to the climate model. So this work has already been done. The result will come out very soon, maybe next month, and then we will publish something, and I come here again and show you the result. And yeah, this is a 3-year project and coming to end next year. And now what is required in this model more to do the global run? So for the global run, we require tropical peatlands because not much work has been done in tropical areas. We require tropical PFTs, how they behave, how they are different from the northern peatlands. We require thermocrust processes. Thermocrust processes are basically the processes where the ice structure or palsamaya suddenly collapses and become a pond, and they start emitting more carbon or methane from these structures. There is no nitrogen and phosphorus in the model, and also there is no management site in the. Also, a lot of peatlands are disturbed by fire. Fire can be included in the model. So once we have done all this work, we can do a global run to see how the peatland affect the global climate. As far as India is concerned, I was talking to some of you. India has a lot of potential and a lot of peatland. From my perspective, because we are rich in wetlands, we have such a long coastal regions, and peatland basically developed in these regions only, where we have accumulation of water, where we have coastal areas. So these are the reason I think where we will find peatlands. And once we know that there are peatlands, then we can do further study. We can put the eddy coverage towers, we can do chamber measurement, we can measure methane emissions, and we can do many different stuff. And then we can do more modeling, of course. But we need to start somewhere. We need to start and locate these peatland and do some kind of work. So yeah, the main conclusion of my study is that we have this most comprehensive model of peatland, and we have this we predict long-term carbon accumulation rate and permafrost distribution across the pan-Arctic. And our recent finding shows that this peatland become a carbon source in some region and carbon sink in some other region. But in the long term, if there will be high warming, peat will continue to lose carbon and affect the Earth radiative balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for a nice talk. And we take questions, comments, discussions from audience. Yes.
Hi, Nitin. Roxy here. Thanks for an interesting
Thank you.
talk. It has stimulated some thoughts and all. I'm just thinking of a hypothetical situation. I know you explored the reduction in permafrost and the associated carbon accumulation rates and so on. But suppose maybe you have encountered this in your paleoclimate runs as well. Suppose the permafrost increases in a region which already has permafrost. Yeah. Does it increase the carbon accumulation over that region? Does that have any effect, or is it like minimal?
Normally, what we have seen in permafrost region, the carbon accumulation are minimal, but they vary also, because some peatlands are in very cold region where there is no variation. There the carbon accumulation rate are very low. But if you come to the lower latitude region where we have sporadic permafrost, there it depends how quickly they melt away and how quickly they basically develop again. Because in summer they melt away some portion of that, and then they also become, they freezes and becomes ice again. So I think in these regions carbon accumulation rate increases further, but which are permanently stored in very high altitude region, there I don't think the carbon accumulation rate increases if there will be more ice. And because permafrost doesn't allow other plant species to grow.
Exactly.
Because the plant cannot extract water from the soil. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can it be extended to mangrove ecosystem as well?
Yes, this is what I was talking to some of your colleagues. It can be in principle, but we have to provide the right parameterization for that PFT. We have to first, so there are several different PFT, tropical PFT, temperate PFT, grass PFT, but there is no mangrove PFT right now. So we have to parameterize first the right PFT, and then yeah, we can do other carbon studies.
Nitin, I do have a question. So
Yes.
even your model do not have any dependency on satellite derived information.
Satellite information. Right. Yeah, we can have.
No, do you have in your model?
No, right now there is no dependency of.
So how do you prescribe this soil leaf area index and land use, land cover, etc.?
We have an input like climate data, temperature, precipitation, and what do you say, the other soil radiation.
Okay.
But for the soil, I think we have dependency. Like we have a soil map. So that comes from, I think, from this what do you say, remote sensing data or something like that.
So if that, my question is that dependency there, how do you take this model back to 1 million years in the past?
Soil map only tells about where there is a peat or where there is no peat.
Yeah. So what if that distribution changed in the past than what you?
We have a lot of observed data also. We have observed point which says that there is a peat in this area or not. I think I have a slide about that also somewhere. Yeah. So,
Okay.
So this is the map, and these are the potential peatland sites. So this is the observed peatland. This is not done by satellite image. This is developed by people on the ground. They have developed
So
this method.
this traces the presence of peatland in the very, very long past.
Yeah, we have that data also.
Okay,
We
so
have
that
data.
that
Paleo data also. So
Okay.
that basically inform us to we use this data to prescribe the model, and we start running the model from that point onward.
Okay. So, but still you are using soil maps.
So
right?
this is that data which I was
Okay.
calling. This is a basal age data.
Yeah. So here we can see.
Yeah, here you can see that this goes till last 20,000 years.
Okay. Yeah. So the next question is that. So do you see?
I just want to add to that.
Yes, please.
I think we can have any data. There is no problem as far as we need. I think I'll just comment to that. We can have any data actually. It's just that as far as it works for validation. I mean, there is no limitation that we don't use remote sensing data or we don't use any other data. We can take any data as far as it validates the model.
Okay. Now the question was that since the model has a dependency on a soil map which come from remote sensing, so that become the new generation information, which probably would not be the real information in the past.
Right.
So how do we take this model to the past? That was the question. Then he said some of the paleo data indeed show the presence of permafrost, so it is okay. So they can use. That's what I understood. If that's correct. Thank you.
Some ice core data.
No, we are not using ice core data, but few people who works with permafrost, they use it to actively adapt data. Basically, they use how deep is the ice within the peat. That data we use it, and I showed you also. We have used actively adapt. This is, and I will show you which data set we use it. So these are the list of data set which we normally use.
Okay.
I think just I wanted to ask just one layman question. So, do you have any idea that this permafrost is melting climate? So, how fast they are melting and which areas are mostly melting?
Yeah, from the recent study which I have read in many papers, they are melting very fast and dramatically also. Some regions are very heavily affected. And in my starting slide, I will show you. So these are the balsa mayas. These are the ice-rich regions. If you go like 10 centimeter to 15 centimeter down, you will find there is ice here. And similarly here in this region, you will find a lot of ice. Suddenly, these regions are turning into a pond. In this area, a lot of permafrost has been disappeared, and these structures are collapsing. But you don't find this in the middle of Russia that has a continental climate. Though there are some regions where this rapid degradation is going on, but yeah, I cannot say precisely how fast it is and how long it takes to that this permafrost will disappear.
They are showing any observational record that they have a carbon emission.
Yeah, so these regions are becoming a big carbon source and methane source because the old carbon is very liable and they decompose very quickly. But the new sites which are becoming wetlands, they are also having they are having a opposite effect. They are enhancing the carbon accumulation rate, like I showed you in this slide. Here, this humpy structure. So initially, when the permafrost thaws, they leave a lot of moisture. This basically boosts their primary productivity, and their decomposition rate slows down. So in the initial years, we find that they are more productive than the normal peatlands.
So net, they are working as a source, right?
Yeah.
This permafrost. So do you think any compensation is there? Any kind of?
Yeah, the only thing which we can do is to limit the warming. We try to limit the carbon footprint.
I mean, those areas, is there any policy to compensate those sources like some forestation or some other?
I think they are waiting for the natural processes, natural succession there. Because if they introduce something artificially there, then whole ecosystem will get disturbed. So they are not, I don't know, they are not doing anything which basically changes the ecosystem type. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have a question actually. So there are practices, not exactly in India, but in the UK and Ireland and maybe in Malaysia is a great example. They grow a lot of oil palm on the peatland. So basically this plant, so I have two parts of this question. First of all, is that a sustainable practice? Because this the soil is very carbon rich, that is good for agriculture. But in this process, are we not leaving more CO2 in the atmosphere? That is the first part.
Yeah.
And secondly, from the more scientific perspective, as you said, if the water in the peatland that goes down, in the water table goes down, it's more dry, right? So the dry, if the soil is dry, that will not sustain the ecosystem because they don't get water, they cannot do the photosynthesis, right? So then the ecosystems will not sustain. If they don't sustain, again the water table will go up. So is it not a self-sustaining negative feedback loop?
Yeah, this is peatland are very resilient in that way. If the water table goes very low, initially they will lose the carbon, but they somehow manage and the water table goes up, and there is this feedback loop going on. I come to your first question. You are saying that peatland, this agricultural land, and
Yeah.
they are using this as a fuel, right?
Agriculture on the peatlands actually.
Yeah. So yeah, people are doing agricultural on the peatland for a long time when they don't know the importance of the peatland. But now, since they know the importance of the peatland, the government are pushing forward to that policy where they basically try to minimize their emissions, and if they cannot minimize their emission, they can turn back them into natural peatlands. So agriculture, they can stop the agricultural there, and then they can have some kind of compensation, and they, the agricultural, they are not in UK. I think they are not allowing any agriculture on the peatland side, and they are preserving now through different methods, through introducing peatland specific plant functional types in these degraded peatlands, and they are also rewetting these peatlands.
Reclaiming kind of.
Yeah, reclaiming. They are doing the reclaiming project, but I am not into this part, mitigation part, so I am not having the.
And
updated.
one more thing, Nitin.
Yeah.
So once you incorporate this process in your future model, actually,
Management.
so basically, if the carbon content in the soil goes down, the color becomes lighter. So the albedo will again increase. So do you consider that effect also?
But the vegetation is green.
Yeah, but the soil. I mean, do you consider the soil color in your?
No, soil color. If it is a bare ground, then you can consider but bare ground has a like 0.5 something like that albedo.
Yeah.
And wet soil and dry soil has different albedo.
So if you lose more carbon from the soil.
Normally, this is a vegetation model. So you can have a bare soil also. You can have a vegetative soil also. So in the vegetative soil, it will be like the albedo will be very less. But in the dry areas, albedo will be higher. Yes.
So that albedo is like a function of your carbon content in the soil. That soil albedo, well,
No,
or it is not.
no, albedo is not.
Okay. Because recently there are studies which consider the soil albedo.
They are the regional Earth system model, which basically determines the regional climate.
Yeah.
But not in this. This is a very different kind of model. So we don't answer this question using this model. We answer this albedo thing using the regional Earth system model.
Okay.
So which tells about how the climate changes over time and how the evapotranspiration and albedo changes. This model basically specifically focuses on carbon balance and all these things, not all the other climate stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
So Dr. Nitin, very nice talk.
Thank you, ma'am.
Understood some portion. So this particular graph we are showing, the one on the right, that is the carbon in the soil, right?
Carbon in the soil, yes. In petagram.
Yeah. So you're telling after 2100,
you
see a slight increase in the soil carbon.
Yes.
That is because of the increase in the vegetation.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah. This is what you can see. So the peatland in the upper region become more productive, and here it is not that.
Permafrost melt and
So there is more vegetation can develop.
Yeah.
And then
because when there is a lot of moisture, the decomposition rate also goes down, and the productivity increases.
Okay, then what happens after 2200?
So what we think is that when permafrost goes away, the water slowly evaporates away or drained down in the soil, and then the peat becomes a normal peatland. That permafrost peatland becomes a normal peatland, and they start decomposing And the warming is also increasing exponentially in this scenario. RCP 8.5 is very high warming scenario. The temperature goes up to 8 to 10 degrees Celsius above normal. So here till here, I think warming is also goes till 6 degrees Celsius, and that is why. And the decomposition rate is exponentially related to the warming, to the temperature. That is why you can see a sharp dip. But it could be possible that if we improve these scenarios, this dip you will not see.
Just one. Yeah. Suppose you have a similar thing for the RCP 245 or something.
4.5. Yeah.
Have you done that?
I have done that study, and we don't find this kind of dip there. Only in our RCP 8.5 we find this dip because of high warming, and high warming decomposition is driven by high warming. So that is why we have this kind of dip. Yeah.
And also you showed the global map of this peatland, right? Where's
Yes.
So you are telling that, but there could be some areas even in India and other places which are probably not there in this map, right?
Yeah, a lot of way. This is this Indonesia region. There is this Amazon peatland is there. This is the Congo Basin is here. In India, this Western and Eastern Ghat. A lot of peatlands are not included right now in this study. This is only for the northern peatlands above 25 degree north.
But in principle, there are other areas also.
In principle, there are other peatlands also.
You have not considered
because no observation study is there about these peatlands.
And the time series which you showed is for the RCP 2.6.
Yeah.
So this is based on all those areas for.
So this is the global climate basically. How much the temperature will increase globally.
Yeah, but then the peatland areas are on only those.
So we have taken only for those latitudes only the temperature. So we have taken the temperature only for the temperature above 25 degree north. Yeah. So this is the figure I think, which it is an old figure, but it's summarized. So this is the temperature profile we have used only.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
So this just to get an idea. You showed your field site, one of the field sites probably, and what is like the temperature at your field site, and at what temperatures would you expect the melting of the permafrost?
So the field site is in Arctic region, Arctic Circle. Here the normally average temperature is in -5 to -10. And in summer, it goes up to 10 degrees Celsius. So
right.
Permafrost, so it's the sporadic permafrost region.
Right.
So when there is warming, you will see some areas there is a lot of water patches here and there.
Right.
But now because of the warming, what is happening? This 5 degree by -10 to -5 goes to -5 to 0 degrees Celsius.
Right.
So that is why you are seeing a lot of collapse. Lot of structure has been collapsing in this area.
Right. Okay. So just accompanying, I mean, while you were talking, since it is close to Arctic and all, so there have been recent studies that shows that by 2050, if the emissions go like this and so on, the Arctic will be sea ice free, at least for some months.
Yeah.
So would you see such a rapid permafrost-free conditions happening at least temporarily in the near future?
My model predicts so, and we are also observing that. But how quick it is, we don't know. But yeah, we have seen a lot of areas are becoming waterlogged. Our area which were earlier having this palsa, a lot of ice. Now there are mini wetlands in a way. And yeah, and it is very rapid. In few years, the last 20 years, it is very rapid because earlier it was not the case, but now it is very quickly melting away. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
I have one last question. If anybody, Can you go back to the RCP map you were, I mean the curves you were showing me? Yeah, here. So it appears in next 300 years, what permafrost contribute is something like what we are doing fossil fuel emission, because the quantity is 20 petagram. 10 petagram is today's emission. So in the past it was 2, 5 like that. So this is kind of a compensation to, even if we cut down the emission, this will emit.
So that is the
And the quantity is kind of matching.
Yeah. So that is the incentive which government is giving to limit the carbon from the natural peatlands. So if you limit the carbon from the natural peatland, you are saving this much amount of petagram.
So even if you cut down, peatland will return it. Same amount, 20 petagram in 200 years. Today is 10 petagram we are emitting. It's funny. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if no other questions, we thank Dr. Nitin for this wonderful talk, and I invite Dr. Krishnan to present him a token of appreciation, a memento.
Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you.
Very nice talk. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It is like
Very nice talk.
Thank you.
pulled it otherwise. It is.
This way? This one. Oh, sorry.
This
Yeah,
way.
it's probably, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, nice meeting you. Very nice questions.
Nice
Yeah,
talk.
yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. And very good audience, I think. Yeah, and very learned, I think.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.